Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today, we will dive into a very exciting topic, Learning Reimagined, Preparing Your Workforce for 2030 and Beyond. This session is eligible for HRCI, SHRM, and ATD Professional Development credits. Let's meet today's speakers. First, we have Stefan Eger, Learning Experience Architect at Learning Pool.
Hello.
Lindsey Coode, Director of Content Software at Learning Pool. And Mellish, Principal Analyst at Brennan Hall Group. Now, before we dive into today's content, let me tell you about Brennan Hall Group and some incredible opportunities that could accelerate your career. Brennan Hall Group is a leading professional development firm that has been serving learning, talent, and HR executives worldwide for more than 30 years. We've advanced the growth and performance of millions of employees and leaders through our cloud-based platform, delivering evidence-based research, data, and certification programs that empower organizations to achieve excellence in every area of human capital management. Our impact spans more than 10 million employees and executives globally, supported by our comprehensive research library, strategic insights, and prestigious awards program. Below is a sample of the organizations we are proud to partner with. Speaking of awards, our Excellence in Action Awards are still accepting applications until October 17th. You have about 3 more weeks for this one, but I recommend you not wait until the last minute. They are prestigious recognitions that can transform your professional profile. Beyond recognition, we have incredible learning and networking opportunities. Registration is open for HCM Excellence Conference happening next year, February 9th through 12th. This is where top minds in human capital management come together. We also have our upcoming BRIC events, our AI Summit on October 16th and 17th, and our Women in Leadership event on November 19th. We also invite you to participate in our research studies. Links will be available after the webinar, or you can always visit brennanhall.com. Once the results are analyzed, all participants receive a piece of complimentary research and other exclusive benefits. All details and applications for everything I've mentioned will be available in a PDF you'll receive within 24 hours after the webinar. Now I want to give a big thank you to today's webinar sponsor, Learning Pool. Learning Pool creates learning experiences that deliver extraordinary outcomes for companies and their people. Global organizations choose Learning Pool for data-driven digital learning solutions that help optimize employee performance. Learning Pool's passion for impact, innovation, and people is the way they stay. Be it for onboarding, upscaling, compliance, or the whole business, Learning Pool helps to develop an effective, agile workforce through learning. Wherever you find ambitious companies investing in their people, you'll find Learning Pool. We are excited to share that at the end of today's webinar, we will be selecting one lucky raffle winner to win a free Excellence in Action program submission. Stay tuned to see if you are the lucky winner. You must be present to win. Now, just a few quick things to note. If you have any questions during the webinar, please use the questions panel on your control bar. We'll be answering questions throughout the session. We're also recording today's webinar, and you'll receive an email within 24 hours with a link to the recording and a PDF of the slides. The chat box is open, so feel free to share your thoughts as we go along. Your input makes this more valuable for everyone. Now, I would like to pass things off to Alan.
Thanks, Ivy, and lovely to be here today with everybody, both our panelists and also everybody who's on the call joining us from all different corners of the world. I saw Tammy from Toronto, Canada. Hello, Tammy. A little quick snapshot of today's agenda. We're going to be talking about a look at L&D today, and then we're going to be looking, spending hopefully the majority of our time looking at the future of work and learning and development and looking 5 years ahead into 2030. And then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. As Ivy mentioned, you don't have to save your questions for the end, especially if it's a really good one. Just fire it off right away as it comes to you, and we might be able to address it in the flow of the presentation rather than waiting till the end. So with that in mind, let's push on. So the first thing I want to do is get a quick temperature or pulse check of the audience. we're looking at which of the following are the top learning priorities for you this year and beyond. And you can select all that apply, but only select it if it's a top learning priority for you. See a few responses coming in, but um, this is a form of a question that we asked in our research at the beginning of the year. So I'm going to be curious to see how this group lines up in terms of priorities now that we're 10 months into 2025 and how that might have shifted. Okay, so Ivy, let's share the results here. Everybody see that? Okay. Now this stacks up relatively well with what I was thinking. Lindsey, when you look at that breakdown of priorities, what occurs to you?
Yeah, I think it is interesting. As you say, it's probably in line with what we would expect. So we know that learning and development teams are being asked to kind of prove the return on investment a lot by the business because obviously budgets are tighter for everyone. So that improving learning measurement and analytics, I would expect to see pretty high. And actually improving the learner experience is something that we'll talk quite a bit about when we get onto the kind of 7 shifts that we're seeing within learning and development, because I think that's really key. I think we need to change and we need to evolve as learning and development overall, and the experiences that we're providing to our learners are key to that.
Stefan, what about you? What did you have anything to add there?
Yeah, obviously I agree with Lindsey about the first two, but it's also interesting to see that leveraging AI and automation is kind of joined third or joined second even with improving strategic alignment. And again, that we're going to be talking about those two as well later on, because I think they both, those joint seconds feed into the joint firsts. So yeah, it'll be interesting to chat more about it.
Yeah, I agree. And then here's, like I said, it's not a complete mirror of the questions that we just asked you, but I think it is interesting that while improving alignment between learning strategy and business goals is still in the top, it's no longer in the decisive top spot that it was for the folks we surveyed at the beginning of the year. So an interesting shift there. Um, Learning measurement and analytics still very much a factor, obviously. I wonder if maybe it's the time of the year that people are feeling more need to justify the investment in learning rather than the alignment with learning, now that budgets are coming due for some of you. So with that in mind, with that covered, I wanted to do another poll that's sort of a little bit more forward-looking. So drilling down further on AI, how would you rate the readiness of your learning organization to use AI to support the business? So it's both an alignment question and an AI kind of maturity or progression question. And we've been surveying people on questions like this, but we don't have data that we're going to share. So you guys are going to be kind of setting the tone here. All right. I'll give it just another second, Ivy. Okay, awesome. So, okay. So most people, or not most, but a plurality of those responding, 43%, are in the piloting testing phase. And then there's another significant chunk still in exploring and experimenting, which I think which for us lines up with the level of adoption and implementation. I know it's a smaller sample size, but it lines up pretty well with what we've seen um, in our recent research around AI adoption. So, um, Lindsey, well, I'll go to Stefan first since I talked to Lindsey first the last time. Lindsey or Stefan, what's your reaction here?
It's interesting. It's good to see that people are testing and trying things out already. So that, or like you say, a lot of people, and people are doing it. So Oh, sorry. Sorry, Tammy. I must speak more clearly into the microphone. I was advised about this. I hope this is good.
Better.
Okay, great. So yes, thank you. There is the majority of people are still at the start of this. We've got the least amount of people implementing and scaling. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Lindsey, what's your reaction to that?
Yeah, it's good to see that people are piloting and testing. I mean, this research we're going to talk about came out of when I was head of innovation at Learning Pool. So kind of spinning up prototypes, testing them, seeing if they work and learning from them, I think it is really key across the business. But I think also something that we could do more of as learning and development. So it's good to see that people are actually, such a significant proportion of people actually are willing to try stuff out, because I think we've been a little bit risk averse, and it's that kind of, if you can try something small, it doesn't matter too much if you fail, just give it a go, see how it works. If it works, then expand it and build on it. If it doesn't, try something else. So yeah, that's really nice to see.
Yeah, well, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Before we move on to the next slide, just to sort of uh, piggyback on what Lindsey said, there's especially in learning and development, um, while there's not no no risk compared with something like payroll or recruiting and hiring decisions, those kinds of things where there are much more potential legal risks to getting something catastrophically wrong, or even getting a small thing wrong, but getting it wrong millions and millions of times because it's been automated by AI. Learning and development, you guys don't need to be as afraid, I think, as some of those other functions in the human capital universe to do that experimenting. So it is very good to see that there's experimentation going on, but I think also as you get closer and closer to a real proof of concept, be encouraged that you don't have to be quite as risk averse as maybe you're being right now, or as maybe your organization is requiring you to be. So on to the next slide. I want to share this because I think that the other reason that L&D teams should be trying to progress along that kind of maturity or adoption pathway this is spelled out in this slide right here, which is um, in a survey of HR, learning and development leaders, they projected at the beginning of 2025 that learning and development would be the most impacted HCM function by AI in 2025. And maybe it's going to take a little bit longer to get there, but I think that directionally this is correct, because there's so many aspects of learning just on the automation basis that can be impacted and improved, hopefully, by intelligent use of AI systems. And then I think what we're going to get into in the latter half of the presentation is where things get a little bit more sophisticated, where we're not just trying to automate the repetitive manual tasks, but really improve the learner experience and the strategic, the agility of the learning function as a whole, and its ability to provide really impactful, relevant learning experiences for people in the flow of work, rather than just making existing systems faster or easier to summarize and create modules out of existing content, things like that. So excited uh, to get to the future here. But one last thing I wanted to leave you guys with before we do that is, one of the ways to often get a look at the future is to look at what leading edge organizations are doing today. And of the stuff that works, you'll find that it becomes table stakes kind of throughout the industry over the next couple of years as people figure out how to make it more affordable, work some of the kinks out. But this is data that we gathered from an analysis of award-winning organizations in learning strategy from our annual Brandon Hall Group Excellence Awards, Human Capital Excellence Awards. And so a couple of themes that emerged from these were learning strategies to do all sorts of different things. So it's not narrowly focused on AI. They weren't all AI-based case studies, but what we found is they all prioritized, or nearly universal prioritized, mobile accessibility. So that's a look at the that's obviously investing in the user experience, and probably I can say for a few of those award-winning organizations, a frontline learner experience where they don't necessarily have a desk. Maybe it's shift work where it's, making time for learning and development activities is more challenging. Next is analytics and reporting depth. That lines up with what the priorities we uncovered from you guys at the beginning in the poll question. That idea of if we can't get better at analytics and measuring what is happening and what impact it's happening on the business, we can't improve. We can't prove we can't improve what doesn't work, and we can't prove what does work. Is essentially where that the reason why that investment matters to you. And then finally, AI integration. Sort of an obvious one, but go back to the stat. If you go back in your mind to the stat we had from where everybody is in their AI learning and development maturity curve, the I won't say it like the leading edge learning organizations. I created a tongue twister for myself in real time. They're absolutely, I would say, further along that AI maturity curve into the, we're beyond piloting, testing, and now we're really integrating and expanding the reach of it. So I'm going to sort of step out of the driver's seat, although I will keep clicking through the slides for everybody. And I want to hear what our friends from Learning Pool have to say about the future in 2030.
Thanks, Alan. So as I alluded to earlier, this what we're going to talk to you about today has come out of a piece of research that I did in a previous role at Learning Pool. So I was head of innovation. My remit was to look 5 to 10 years into the future. What are learning technologies going to look like? And we did this in a number of ways. We focused on kind of two key areas. One is what will organizations look like in 5 to 10 years time, because that's effectively what we're preparing the workforce for. But then also, what do the technologies look like, and where do we think the learning technologies are heading, and what can we do? So it was interesting seeing that statistic about learning and development being the most impacted kind of department. And my first thought was, what do we mean by that? Do we mean that they're going to use AI the most to create materials, things like that? Because we know there's a lot of that going on. But I think, as we also alluded to, it's actually more interesting what we can do now at scale, what AI, generative AI in particular, allows us to do at scale that we couldn't before. So things like giving people that kind of personal coach and tutor, or kind of having those kind of role play conversations. They were just things that we couldn't have done even 3 years ago. So to do this research, we spent a lot of time talking to people that work in learning and development, so to our customers. We spent a lot of time kind of analysing kind of secondary research, so from analysts and things like that. We did surveys, we did one-to-one conversations. So we really did go into quite a lot of detail in this to try and get to the point where we could start to have an understanding of what 2030 might look like, and therefore what tools we could create to help organizations get there, basically. So that QR code that's on the page now will take you to the full white paper if you want to have a look at it. You'll notice that we've called this the 7 shifts reshaping how we learn at work. We are only going to cover 4 of those, and we are going to do it at a very high level. just because of the amount of time we've got. So if you want to have a deeper dive, then you can go and have a look at that also.
Great. Yes. As Lindsey just said, we're about to share and chat about these 4 key shifts that we picked out of the 7 from the white paper. But before we get into it, we'd like to see how you see the future of learning. So we just have a small task for you alongside this. While we chat, we'd like you to think about the way you learn and how that might look like in 2030. What do you think will change completely? And what do you think will still be recognizable? We'd love to see your thoughts in the chat. So just think about what workplace learning might be like at your organization in 2030 and drop your ideas in the chat. Okay, so the first one is about AI and automation. AI isn't coming, it's here, and it's transforming the way we work. Lindsey's already spoken about that quite a bit. So we need to talk about AI and automation. That's definitely a shift that's going to be a drive for change in organizational learning. They used to be 2 tools, but they've begun to blend and become one. You'll have things like AI curated learning journeys. So you use an AI enabled automation tool that you configure to do certain tasks if certain conditions are true. For example, it can create an onboarding journey that is bespoke to you personally and your skill level as the new starter. So it's not a sheep dip induction type thing. It's bespoke and personalized to you. This kind of setup can also then support you with professional growth, etc., and all manner of other things. You have natural language queries, and we've been wanting those for so long. Imagine an AI learning assistant that's always available, not just hidden in some portal, but embedded right into the tools that you already use every single day. It can predict challenges you're about to face and step in to help at the right moment in time. No more searching for how do I build a pivot table. As soon as it sees you start, it offers guidance, which may sound a little bit like a 1990s Microsoft Clippy moment. But imagine if you could configure it to set its boundaries. You tell it when to help, and it truly learns your preferences, your strengths and your weaknesses, so that it's not just a pop-up hint. It's a real game-changing coach that sits alongside you. Content that adapts automatically is another thing. Given the right information at the right level of depth and complexity, for example, to satisfy compliance requirements in different geographical zones or different sectors of industry or levels of seniority. That's what our elusive digital learning lead from a healthcare industry is already using AI tools to do to some extent. And then there's the coaching and tutoring assistants. Again, Lindsey mentioned those already. They're kind of virtual tools enabled by AI that provide personalized on-demand guidance and feedback to help you and or your teams achieve personal and professional development goals.
Thanks, Stefan. So just a little note on the quotes. These are all from real people. Some of the people we spoke to couldn't get permission from their teams, their comms teams, for us to use their name and organisation. So, but they are all real quotes. So that's why you'll see some names and some are anonymised for that reason. So we've been talking about skills for a few years now. It's been a bit of a buzzword in learning and development. We know that kind of changing skills requirements within organizations are reshaping how people progress and perform. So I have a question that I tend to ask at this point, and it just kind of drills home the reason why knowing the skills within your organization is important. So we could do this with hands up maybe, but how many people do you know working in a role that's oceans apart from their training? So working in an area that has nothing to do with perhaps what they studied at university or at college. I don't actually know whether I can see people using hands up, but anyway, normally at that point, I get lots of nodding, and I'm actually a really good example of this. So my degree is in mechanical engineering, but I worked as a learning designer straight out of university, then moved into kind of product development, innovation, and software, but I still lead our learning library, so still very much in that learning design world. So I have a mechanical engineering degree. Is that any use to anyone in the world of work that I find myself in now? You probably wouldn't want me designing parts for your plane, which is the main reason I never went into it. But the fact that I used to code as part of my degree has really helped me in the role that I do now. Again, I'm not a brilliant developer by any stretch of the imagination, but because I understand the concepts and I understand how it works, it means I can perform better in the role that I'm doing. But for much of my career, nobody would have known that I had that skill. So I want you to imagine that your organization really knew what skills every person had, not just their job titles or what they did last year or the year before, but a system that could really spot kind of people's hidden talents and skills, maybe that could spot the analyst with a hidden leadership potential or a frontline worker with strong digital skills. That's something that we've been really focusing on at Learning Pool, is helping organizations do that analysis. And what that means for organizations and individuals, and particularly individuals, is instead of waiting for a promotion or having to move to another company, we can help those employees see personalized pathways, showing where their skills could take them internally, alongside suggested learning to get there, whether that's online or in person. So I think that's really key to the whole skills landscape, is making sure that people have those opportunities. We don't want our best people to feel that they have to go elsewhere to get promotions or to grow. We want them to be able to do that within our organizations. Okay, so again, this is something that we mentioned a little bit. This is actually one of the came up in the poll that Alan did, and came up pretty high from what I can remember. So evolving learning expectations. We know that people, sorry, I've lost my train of thought. So we know that people have different expectations of learning to have perhaps what they did kind of 5-10 years ago. So I've worked in learning technologies probably for nearly 30 years, which makes me feel very old. One of my first jobs was creating, I think, about 200 hours of e-learning content for a military aircraft. I'm not sure anybody ever got through the full 200 hours, but there was very much a kind of more is more type mentality. And I think we've moved away from that, but the real world has moved away from that even more. It's like it's quite rare these days that we would go and find even a video or anything like that that is longer than kind of 5-10 minutes. If you go onto YouTube or something like that, if it's more than 10 minutes, you're a bit kind of like, how interested am I in this? So we want to be able to reflect the quality and the interaction that people get within their kind of outside of work experience, and we need to be able to reflect that within work. So again, one of the questions I often ask is, how many of you head straight to your learning platform when you have a question at work? I think it's if we're entirely honest with ourselves, probably not the first place we go. We're likely to turn to a colleague, we're likely to Google it, we're likely to do a bit of research. It's often that we only go to our learning platform when we have a very specific work requirement. And so I guess what I'm asking you today is to kind of think about how can we change that? How can we make the learning that we create something different? I mean, I've seen, sorry, I'm struggling to keep up with the chat slightly, but I've seen mention of flow of work. And I think that's one thing that's really important. And we'll come on to some of that in a minute. But yeah, making it easy for people to find things. So like Stefan was saying about those kind of natural language searches, meaning that we can actually find the stuff that we need when we need it. But again, we also want it to be interesting. If we're going to expect people to go somewhere, we need to give them a reason to go there. So if we just take something like Instagram, for example, people will spend quite a lot of time there just scrolling through. We're probably not going to get to that with our learning, but maybe if there was lots of different departments within the business putting out short bite-sized pieces of what they're doing, maybe we can get a little bit of that buzz, and maybe people will spend their first 5-10 minutes of their day actually kind of going to their learning platform and seeing what's new and things like that. So it's not necessarily an easy road, but it is one that can have quite a big cultural impact as well as a learning impact.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So, and now we're already at the business impact piece, which is the last shift we've selected for today. So learning and development really will need to show its contribution to organizational success. It'll be, or it is, about moving from demonstrating that learning activity has taken place to showing the impact that activity has had. No more nebulous claims about broad ROI, but we need actual provable behavior change. We have to recognize, of course, that it's hard to show a direct causation between your learning provision and the organization's commercial gains. But the behavioral outcomes can be demonstrated if you have the mechanisms to do so. L&D teams have for ages felt the pressure to prove impact, but budgets are now getting tighter and tighter. So it's absolutely critical these days. It's no longer enough to just report completion rates or learner satisfaction. Remember happy sheets? Stakeholders now expect really clear data-backed connections between the learning and the business outcomes. And you can see that in the quote on this slide. Now, imagine these two examples. Imagine showing your leaders not how many courses were completed, but directly demonstrating how behaviors have changed. And this one example is from a UK supermarket chain, specifically the bakery section within it. Imagine they lose some of the daily bake of their buns because they get burnt. Now, they did some training and measured the before and after. The number of buns that get burnt reduces following a timely training intervention. That's the sort of place where you can easily demonstrate a correlation. Or a sales team completes a product simulation, and the next quarter's numbers reveal a faster close rate. Suddenly, L&D isn't fighting to explain its value anymore. It's showing it with evidence that really matters. It's not about proving that learning matters. It's about proving how it matters and providing the evidence of its impact. That's what will help you move your L&D department from a cost center to a real driver of efficiency and a contributor to growth in your organization.
Thanks, Stefan. So I was just going to do a quick run through of, so we asked you up front what you thought learning in 2030 might look like, and we've got some really interesting comments in here. I'll talk you through kind of my thinking, and as I said, it's a fictional thing, obviously, but it is based on the research. So I just wanted to pick up on a couple of the points before I went into that. I think one is I saw mention of critical thinking, and that we don't want to let AI do our thinking for us. And I think that's really true. It's very easy to become almost a bit lazy because we've got these tools now. And I think all of us trying to keep our ability to kind of a critical thought and making sure that we're telling it what to think rather than the other way around and things like that. It's interesting, when I did this research, and I did a presentation on it where I did all 7 of the shifts in one go last week. And I was a bit like, I kind of wish I hadn't done 7. Maybe I should have done slightly less, because 7's a lot. They always say, don't they, it's like 5 is the best list length. And the one actually that I thought, the first one that I thought I would cut was the AI and automation one. And my reasoning for that is that they're tools like any other tool. They're not some magic wand or anything like that. They just enable us to do certain things. So yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. I don't know, Alan and Stefan, whether there was any of these you wanted to pull out. I was going to maybe talk about a bit about the flow of work as well. I think there was one saying that doesn't 100% replace the other types of training, which
Yes.
is, yeah, absolutely true.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody understands ultimately, like, especially for certain things like onboarding or where you're trying to build up a base of knowledge in anything, get that foundation, some of the big concepts put together properly, for for the learner, either in person or, virtual instructor led, or, one of the many other modalities to at least get the baseline established is often important, or depending on the task or skill that you're trying to develop in somebody, it might literally just be best for that person to sit with somebody who's done it a million times before and watch and learn and then practice and have them critique them. Like, there's certain things that we can't entirely replace and we don't want to, but I think learning in the flow of work definitely does make its case, that it can improve retention and impact for people. At least, I get to see, I get to interact with a lot of people who are either building these tools or using them, and the impact that it can have of giving somebody information right when they need it, when at the moment, is huge, in a way that we haven't been able to achieve ever before.
Absolutely, I completely agree. It is such an important part of the picture, and there are these skills-based use cases that are just so many for learning in the flow of work. But when you're thinking about, Alan, you mentioned onboarding. Leadership is another use case where it's not just about information transfer, it's about community building, it's about the feeling of cohorts. Social learning has a huge part to play in both onboarding and leadership. I'm talking about these because they're the two things that I spend most of my time doing. I work an awful lot building those learning programs that try to bring people together and encourage a knowledge transfer. And we've actually been including AI facilitation in that. So where people get personalized AI-driven feedback on their reflections at the end of the week, whilst also learning as a group of human beings together. So I think the learning in the flow of work is absolutely important, but like Tammy says, it doesn't replace other types of training.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'll just talk you through kind of, this has been lifted from the white paper. So again, if you want to dive in a bit more detail, but this is my stab based on the 7 shifts that we've seen of what a day in the life of someone in 2030 in relation to their learning and development might look like. So we've got Jordan. He works as a customer contact agent. So it's just before 9 a.m. and he's just arrived at work. So before he logs into his queue, he gets a quick AI curated refresher that appears. It says, you've had a few complex policy calls lately. Here's a 3-minute scenario to sharpen your escalation handling. So he runs through it while he's drinking his coffee, and it can adjust the scenario to match his particular role and the targets that he has. Once he begins on the phones, the AI assistant is running in the background. It can give him real-time prompts based on what customers say. For example, somebody's asking about a refund. He doesn't have to go and hunt for the refund policy. It's automatically delivered to him. He can then decide to send that straight to the customer if that's the information they need, or he can just use it to give them that information and help talk them through. Then mid-shift, he gets another pop-up. Great work handling that last call. Would you like feedback, or do you want to log this for your team leaderboard? If he can opt for feedback, and he'll get a short AI-powered debrief giving him tips on tone and clarity. And then he can also log it to his dashboard if he wants to, shows that he has met a particular objective, perhaps, of a role that he was working towards. Compliance training, already done. It's automatically tracked, broken into micro challenges across the past 2 weeks. So he doesn't have to find an hour out of his day to complete it, and there aren't any surprise audits. So he logs off at 5 p.m. He's confident, he knows his job, he feels supported, and he feels that he's actually progressing in his role as well. So this is what I see as the future of frontline learning. And it comes back to the things that we've always talked about. It comes back to really focusing on what our organizations need, and possibly more importantly, what our people need, and making sure that we can support them, because we want people to be kind of confident in their roles. We want them to be happy in their roles. So I'm sure kind of that you've got more thoughts on that as well. In fact, there was one other comment that I meant to talk about as well, which I think was about the social side. I worry that in-person socialization will suffer. I think that was Sharon, wasn't it? I think, yeah, that's a really big issue. And I don't think that's just a learning and development challenge. It's something that I've actually been talking with colleagues about today. Is we are a predominantly remote workforce at Learning Pool. Not completely, we do have some offices, but the majority of our people work remotely, and you do miss something. It's like, yes, you can kind of communicate really well on like forums like we are now, but it's not quite the same as bumping into someone by the kettle and having a chat and finding out how the family are and the new puppy and that kind of thing. It is different. So I think that's probably one of our big challenges. And I guess we do that alongside other areas of the business. It's not just a learning and development challenge, it's an HR one. It's every manager should be considering this and looking at how we can kind of move that forward as well.
I think it's a post-COVID issue hugely, isn't it? And there's what I've noticed, and I've been speaking to people about, is that there's a lot of spontaneous ideas generation that happens when you're in person, that doesn't happen when you don't bump into people randomly. So yeah, I think that's
really true. I've actually just spotted another comment. Sorry, I'm digressing slightly, from Tammy, saying about, I think this assumes that people are open to direct targeted feedback. I've got a real thing about feedback. I love feedback and think all organizations should encourage feedback. We need to teach people to do it well. There's actually a book, if you've not read it, it's a Netflix book about the culture at Netflix, and they kind of see it, it's a while since I've read it, but effectively what they're saying is that you have a duty to feed back to your colleagues and to tell them what they're doing well and what they're not doing well and what they could do better. And there is an art. We don't want to upset people, but actually I love feedback. I like working with people that will, I was about to say criticize me, not on a personal level, obviously, but people that will give me that kind of critical feedback that helps me improve and helps me learn. But I think you're right, Tammy. It's definitely something that some people need to become more comfortable with, both giving and receiving.
Yeah, and I'm glad you serviced that one, Lindsey, because I think also the thing is, like, whether it's I would be interested to find out if somebody was willing to do and pay for the research to look at a company that implemented the in the moment kind of AI generated, or at least semi AI generated feedback that we're talking about, and then see if it was see what the results were compared to just getting feedback from your manager or your colleagues directly. I'd be interested to know, because I think I have a theory that there's a certain segment of the population that might take it less personally when it comes from a machine. Like, it's, like, oh, it's not a real person, but I could, like, and also it might be delivered a little bit better on average if it's, if it's just coming from AI, whereas there's probably a wider variability in the quality of delivery in the average manager or colleague, where it could be everything from, hey, stupid face, why is your face so stupid when you're on calls with clients, all the way up to, the really great, direct, but, effective feedback that Lindsey's talking about. So
Yeah.
it might be a net improvement for some organizations, depending on what the culture is like going into it.
I think that's really interesting. You've just given me a research project, I think, Alan. We have a tool called AI Conversations that allows you to role play, but then gives you really specific feedback against a rubric. And the AI does it brilliantly. It kind of tells you what you did well, it tells you what you didn't do so well, and it tells you what you could do better. It's like even down to kind of like how you could word something. And I'm quite an experienced manager, and it's made me kind of go, oh yeah, that's good. I was struggling for words there. I like that phrasing, and I like how that's been kind of thought through. So yeah, I think you could do something really interesting there.
I also think that with the AI Conversations product that we've got, there is a real interesting difference in the role play, the fear of the role play that you have if you do it face to face with your manager or another experienced real person. There is a kind of fake acting quality to it that you don't get when you speak directly to an AI person. It feels almost more real, like a more like a believable situation, I think. Yeah. So all of this, I think I've done a lot of, I've built a lot of engagement and nudge campaigns over the last few years, and just the way to communicate feedback and reminders is it's a real art. It's really difficult to get right. So I think that there's a huge scope here to train models and to do this get this right here.
Yeah, and that is such I think also sometimes people's suspicion of the overall direction we're talking about with AI is informed more so by their use of like the consumer facing AI tools that are out there, which can still do certain things amazingly well. But, if you want to test the capacity of ChatGPT, just have ask it for really detailed analysis of something that you're an expert in, whether it's your backyard or you're a physics professor or something like that. There's certain things that you'll see the limitations because it's drawing too much from, I guess, sort of a generalized knowledge base, whereas the exciting thing that Stefan is talking about is that when you can get really particular and start training a models, and you're controlling what what information concepts and guardrails and all that are being put in there, you can get a much more fit for purpose tool than you would just asking ChatGPT your question.
Absolutely. And actually, one of the things that I'll always remember is when I was writing the initial sort of prompts for some of these responses to learner reflection questions, we had to really train the model to recognize when what the learner has written didn't have anything to do with the question, to then just say what you've written doesn't seem to have anything to do with the question. Otherwise, it would have just gone and found some answer. So it's those sorts of things that are really interesting. But I also wanted to say the scenario that Lindsey talked through, the day in the life of Jordan, I believe his name was. This is support, and I feel like that's how we need to frame it. That's support for doing your job well, for getting better at what you're doing. It's growth. This is I feel like it must be framed from a supporting point of view.
Yeah, especially for some of the frontline roles, like what the scenario lays out, whether it's frontline in a physical space like a restaurant or a grocery, or frontline in a call center environment, or any sort of customer support role. I'm sure we all know there's all of those roles have incredibly high turnover that are sort of because one, they're often an early career role for somebody who is maybe moving on, but also if it's their first role of employment outside the home, they're coming without a lot of the background that somebody who's been working for 20 or 30 years does, and just in terms of how to interact, expectations that people might have, and all of that. And so I would be shocked if this level of support didn't drastically improve some of the attrition rates that you see in frontline roles, just because if if you're constantly getting yelled at by customers or being told, asked questions you have no idea how to answer, and, your boss is on their break or whatever it is, where if you're in an environment where you're feeling unsupported, how likely are you going to be investing in staying in that company and trying to grow? And how much more likely are you going to be just looking for something that seems less bad or a step up? So this is also really a retention tool for those frontline roles where the training and time to proficiency, excuse me, is so important to the business. So
100%.
we have been pushing towards the end here, so I want to make sure we have time for the last slide here and then Q&A with the audience. But who wants to set this one up for everybody? We want to get some response in the comments while we
Cool.
wind
Yes.
down here for sure.
I'll set this one up before we go, because we're L&D people here. It's always good to have something actionable at the end of a session just like this. So we'd love it if you shared one thing that you can influence at work to help you prepare for learning in 2030. Doesn't have to be anything that's immediately transformational. Just think about something that you can do, and please share it in the chat as a kind of a virtual commitment card. It'll be great to see what you all write.
Yes. And as people are putting their answers in here, oh, great. So Tammy just popped in and said, I've been running AI webinars with another trainer to help raise awareness and engagement with AI. It's a great one. And then Nelly, I hope I'm pronouncing everybody's names correctly, begin exploring multimodal learning pathways that have greater impact. I really like that one too.
Nice. Yeah. Very much so. Great stuff.
And one of Sharon says, remind colleagues about the AI agents we have for various leadership programs to help reinforce the learning. So being a champion for some of the tools that are already there that could be more supportive of that.
I'm loving seeing these. I'm thinking that we need you guys to do a webinar. I'd like to know more about some of these that you're putting on here.
I know. So I'm getting more
They really
questions in
sound
my
really
head as
interesting.
these come in.
Yeah.
Rachel, at a base level, things will change. They need to change, and we need to deliver adaptive content, thinking of the learning as a consumer. I think that's a great one too. And I mean, it lines up, that's been a common thread, I think, through the whole conversation today is, improving the learning experience. And then, what does that mean? It means coming, most of us are not going to be able to develop the level of learner experience that somebody might expect on Netflix or that kind of consumer grade, super easy, personalized to you kind of level of experience. But we can do a lot more, and the technology is getting better all the time to be able to really be transformative. Any additional thoughts, Lindsey or Stefan here?
No, nothing from me at the moment.
No. It's just been great to see everyone's interactions.
Yeah. And I agree, learning as a consumer is a great phrase, Rachel.
Yes.
If we keep that in mind, we probably won't go too far wrong.
That's right. Yeah. Because it's especially it's such a difference between when, essentially when all training was in person and everybody would, have to sit in a classroom or a conference room and go through it. Maybe you weren't getting great engagement there, but especially now that so much of training is, delivered or at least delivered and then supported online, it really does. People can behave more like consumers with learning because they have the choice to, really dig in on a subject they're interested in that's in their company's learning tech stack or not. So there's much more autonomy, I guess, for the learner, and so they get to behave like a consumer more so. Well, and it's been a very engaging hour here today. So I do want to remind everybody that I saw one or two comments that asking about the recording of this being available. So just so you know, it will be a link to both the presentation and the recording will be sent sometime tomorrow. Ivy, I turn it over to you to take us through the rest of this.
Yes, I want to announce the raffle winner. Winning a free Excellence in Action program submission is Rachel K. Congratulations, Rachel. I will be reaching out shortly with more details.
Thank you, everybody. And like I just said, I previewed this slide essentially. Thank you so much for joining us today. You'll get a PDF of the presentation and a link to the recording within 24 hours. And that if you didn't catch it before, that QR code that to the report from Learning Pool, which I can say personally was very well done. So do not sleep on getting the full 7 shifts that Lindsey and her team have produced there. Also, a reminder that you can always sign up for more webinars with Brandon Hall Group. And also a huge thank you once again to the team at Learning Pool. We appreciate your guys' support so much in making this possible.
Thank you for having us as well.
Yes, it was a pleasure. Thank you.